In the middle of a crowded courtroom, silence hung heavy in the air. A small, trembling girl, no older than 8, sat in the witness stand, her hands clenched together so tightly her knuckles turned white. All eyes were on her, but her voice refused to come. Then, almost unnoticed, she shifted slightly and gave a barely visible hand signal toward the police dog sitting quietly by the officer's side. No one expected what would happen next. Within seconds, the dog leapt into action, and what it uncovered left the entire courtroom stunned, changing the case forever. Before we continue this story, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and like this video so we can bring you even more amazing stories like this one. The story began in a quiet suburban neighborhood where 8-year-old Emily lived with her mother. Life had not been easy for the little girl. Her father had walked out years ago, and her mother worked double shifts just to keep the bills paid. Emily was shy, soft-spoken, and rarely the center of attention. But behind her gentle eyes was a sharp awareness most adults didn't notice. One day, her life took a dark turn. She witnessed something no child should ever have to see. A crime unfolding in her own neighborhood. A respected man in the community, a well-known businessman, had been hurting people and threatening those who dared to speak out. By sheer accident, Emily became a witness to one of his crimes. She told her mother, who immediately went to the authorities. Soon, the case gained attention, and the businessman, determined to protect his reputation, denied everything. He had money, power, and influence, enough to make witnesses feel like their voices didn't matter. But what he didn't know was that the smallest voice, the one he least expected, would be the most powerful. When the trial began, Emily was called as a witness. The courtroom buzzed with whispers when she entered. Many doubted she would even speak. After all, she was just a child. Sitting near the front was a police K9, a German shepherd named Max, known for his incredible training and sharp instincts. Few knew that Emily had quietly been shown a way to communicate with Max in case she became too frightened to speak out loud. No one imagined that tiny detail would end up cracking the entire case wide open. The trial pressed forward with intensity. The businessman sat confidently with his legal team, his smug smile practically daring anyone to prove him guilty. His expensive suit, polished shoes, and cold demeanor painted the image of a man untouchable by justice. Witnesses before Emily struggled under his lawyer's questions, often stumbling or contradicting themselves. It seemed for a moment that the truth might never be fully revealed. Then came Emily's turn. As she walked up to the stand, the courtroom grew silent. Her small figure looked even smaller against the grand wood panels and towering judge's bench. She avoided eye contact with the man accused. Instead, she glanced nervously toward the police dog, Max, sitting patiently beside his handler. The prosecutor asked her questions gently, trying to coax the truth out, but Emily's lips quivered, and she couldn't bring herself to speak. Every time she opened her mouth, her voice failed her. The defense attorney leaned back smugly, already believing the little girl would crumble, making her testimony worthless. But Emily remembered something important. During pretrial preparations, an officer had shown her a silent signal she could use if she ever felt too scared. Max had been trained not only for protection, but also for detection, especially the ability to respond to gestures connected to hidden threats. Slowly, Emily raised her hand and made the subtle motion. Max's ears perked immediately. In one swift motion, the dog rose to his feet and began pulling toward the defendant's table. Confusion swept the room. The judge called for order while gasps echoed as Max pressed his nose against a briefcase near the businessman's chair. The handler moved quickly, opening the case under supervision. Inside lay a stash of hidden documents, papers showing bribes, threats, and even detailed notes on people he had silenced before. Among them were photographs linking him directly to the crime Emily had witnessed. The courtroom erupted, the businessman's face drained of color. For the first time, his mask of control cracked. But Max wasn't done. He circled back and barked again, this time at the businessman himself. Officers moved in cautiously. Hidden in his jacket pocket was a small device, a flash drive containing recordings of conversations that revealed his guilt beyond doubt. In that moment, Emily's small, silent gesture had unleashed a chain of revelations no one expected. The courtroom descended into chaos. The defense scrambled, objecting furiously, but the judge silenced them with a pounding gavel. The evidence uncovered by Max was undeniable. The businessman's attorney whispered frantically, but it was clear the case had taken a devastating turn. Emily sat frozen, unsure if she had done something wrong. But then the prosecutor placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, nodding with reassurance. The judge leaned forward, his stern eyes now fixed on the accused. The atmosphere shifted. Suddenly, the man who had seemed untouchable looked small, vulnerable, and cornered. One by one, officers laid out the evidence on the table: bribes, threats, recordings, and documents, all pointing to years of corruption and abuse of power. The prosecutor's voice grew stronger with each revelation, weaving the evidence into a devastating narrative. The businessman, who once carried himself like a king, now sat slumped, his hands trembling as the weight of the truth bore down. The moment of impact came when the flash drive was played aloud. The courtroom listened to his voice, cold and calculating, as he discussed silencing anyone who got in his way. Gasps echoed. Some spectators covered their mouths in shock. Others shook their heads in disbelief. The jury stared wide-eyed, knowing the case had already been decided before deliberation even began. And through it all, Max sat calmly by Emily's side, his presence steady and strong. The little girl, who once felt powerless, had given the signal that brought an empire of lies crashing down. When the verdict was finally read, the businessman was found guilty on multiple counts: corruption, intimidation, and criminal activity. The sentence was harsh, fitting for the years he had spent hiding behind wealth and influence. As he was led away in handcuffs, his once smug expression replaced by defeat, the entire courtroom erupted in applause. Emily, however, didn't cheer. She simply sat quietly, her small hands gripping the edge of the wooden bench. She wasn't thinking about the man in chains. She was thinking about the dog who had stood by her side when her voice failed her. Reporters outside the courthouse swarmed the story, their headlines capturing the shock of the moment. Little girl's silent signal to police dog uncovers truth, and K9 hero exposes corruption in courtroom drama. But behind the flashy headlines was a deeper truth. Sometimes justice doesn't come from loud voices or powerful speeches. Sometimes it comes from the courage of a child and the loyalty of a dog. Emily's bravery inspired many. She became a quiet symbol of hope, that no matter how small or unheard someone may feel, their actions can still create ripples that shake the world. Max received a Medal of Honor for his role, but to Emily, he was more than a hero. He was proof that she wasn't alone, even when fear tried to silence her. The case reminded everyone watching that justice isn't about power, money, or influence. It's about truth, and the truth, no matter how deeply hidden, has a way of breaking free when given the chance. As you hear this story, ask yourself, if a frightened little girl and a faithful dog could bring down corruption in a courtroom, what hidden truths in our own world are still waiting to be uncovered? And who among us has the courage to bring them to light?